So, what was that? Oops. So how to play best of 3 with time? Because playing best of 3 without time is, obviously, is different. That's not working. Anyway, best of 3 with time. So, game 1, let's say you have, in general, it's good to play aggro, obviously. But in game 1, if you have a turn 5, maybe turn 6, or even turn 7, win strategy, like Turn of the Tides from my experience, game 1 is not much of a problem, because technically, think of it, game 1 you got up to 40 minutes to play your game 1, but once you get to game 2 you have way less than that, right? Or 40 minutes to an hour, depending on the time of the rounds. So game 1 you have up to the amount of time that they give you for for game 1, but once you get to game 2 you have way less time, and then game 3 is way less time. So since time is a factor and time gets less and less per game, you need to, one, make sure you win game 1. So that's the first strategy, right? That's the first part of the strategy, is win game 1, right? Don't give up your win con. Let's say Turning of the Tides is your win con. Don't charge a single copy of Turning of the Tides. Obviously, mulligan to make sure you have at least 1 Turning of the Tides in your hand, as an example. So make sure you have 1 copy of win con, because as soon as you can play it, you want to play it and win, right? That's why it's called your win con. So you definitely want to do that, and win game 1. Now, since your opponent knows how your deck works and how you try to win with the deck, they're going to side in stuff, right? They're going to try to find ways to beat your win con. But what you're going to do in game 2, since you're going to have very little time, right? What you're going to do in game 2, especially if you side deck, I don't, but if you do, consider like Champa, Issa Prinkai, stuff like that. Anything that can give you double strike, or side in cards that have double strike and that are cheap, right? And then go in on game 2, double striking your opponent, right? Making sure that they take 2 damage for every time you take 1 damage. Obviously, ideally you want to take 0 damage, right? Ideally, but if your opponent does do you damage, minimize it down to just 1 damage, right, per turn, while you're dealing them 2 to 3, 2 to 4 damage a turn, right? Because you're just double striking them down, right? And of course, you're going to be relying on your leader and potentially a unison swing, so you're going to hold back on like trying to play battle cards and try to play your decks, little fancy combos or chains, and definitely try to avoid, well, I guess I won't say that. I was going to say avoid cards that causes you to search. Scratch that. Go ahead and search. YOLO, right? Go crazy with all your search effects. But mainly just use your energy to obviously play your negates and to play your search, right? And your double strike stuff. But just keep your defenses up after turn 3, right? 3 energy. When you have 3 energy and up, keep your defenses up. And if time gets called on game 2, well, you already won game 1, and if you have more life than your opponent, well, you win. But let's say your opponent has more life than you, so they win. But because it's a tie, and tie rule, right? And because you won game 1, you get the game. So that's why you want to be you want to be 1 up, right? You want to be in the position where you won game 1, because it benefits you more if you win game 1. But let's say your opponent manages to beat you game 2, right? And you have a little bit of time left for game 3. Again, do the whole dealing your opponent a lot of damage, right? Try to make sure that your life is higher than theirs. Deal them damage, keep your life, protect your life. Deal them damage, protect your life, right? So when time does get called, you have more life than them, and you'll win that way. So that's a pretty simple, basic, straightforward strategy. One that I'm going to be using a lot more, obviously, just because time is a factor. It's like, okay, now I got to take time into the factor, right? Now I got to master time itself, like hit, right? Gotta master time. So, like I said, game one, you don't have, so that's the thing about game one, is that you want to make sure that you take your, you take your time to learn your deck, your opponent. So yeah, you want to take your time with game one, so that way you can learn your opponent's deck, learn the strengths and weaknesses of it, so you can try to exploit it in game two. But like I said, you want to be very aggro on game two, just in case, for a couple of reasons. Don't want to go into why you need to be faster than your opponent, but when it comes to damage. But I've said in other videos that every damage a person takes, that's a turn they lose, right? So turns, translate to time. Time translates to turns. So if you deal 2 damage to your opponent in the first 3 turns of the game, that's 6 turns they lost, right? From the future, right? That gets you closer to winning by turn 4, right? Like game 1, you can go up to turn 5, even potentially turn 6. But in game 2, you probably get like turn 3, turn 4 at most. And if you don't have more life than your opponent at that point in time, and time does get called, then that's bad for you. So you definitely want to make sure that every time it's your turn, you deal the most damage you could possibly deal. That's where Champa, Isoprene Kai, signing them in will come in handy. Me, I will already have stuff main deck that can go aggro, so I already would have that advantage. But it's something to keep in mind, something to consider. Man, it's really interesting to see my Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta Frenzied Burst in that list back there. I see people catching on to my power. Alright, and that's the end of the video.